Hi, I'm Scott Moulton, and this is my presentation about how to get a forensics image from one of the new MacBook 2015s, the Retina display. You will see that it is different than any other MacBook, and it is now in USB target mode instead of a FireWire or a Thunderbolt target mode. So it is a very difficult kind of image to make, and it is even more difficult to make sure that you are applying power. And I'm trying to show all the ways that I've tested to try to get an image of this. I teach a forensics class and a data recovery class. I also teach a DeepSpar and Atola classes separately. So there are 3-day Atola and 3-day DeepSpar classes that I have scheduled on myharddrivedied.com, and you're welcome to go to that site and see those. If you go to the presentation page, you will find a link to other YouTube videos, and I have well over 100 videos on how to actually do forensics and data recovery and samples from my classes. They are not fluff, they are real material, and you won't find marketing material or anything in there. But I do have physical classes, and if you want a seated class or a distance learning class, please feel free to contact me using that site, myharddrivedied.com. Anyway, now is how I'm going to tell you how to do the images on the MacBook and the MacBook Pro. Hey everybody, my name is Scott Moulton. I am doing a very informal lab here on some problems with the new Macintoshes. So this is the 2015 Macintosh Retina and the 2015 Pro series of Macintoshes that have just been released that are problematic in trying to image them. And they do have the newest version of Yosemite on them with encryption enabled, because now that's one of the other key problems that we'll have in forensics, is that when you are setting up your new Mac, the very first option before you open up and you come into Yosemite is that you would like to encrypt your hard drive, and so it's on by default, and you can choose to uncheck the box, but the box is there to check. But there is some other problems with the Retina version of the Macintosh. So I have one here behind me, and this is going to be what I'm going to be trying to show you as I'm going through the lab trying to do forensics and trying to show you what the problems are. Unlike other Macs, such as the one to my left here, this one has a basically FireWire. You're going to use Thunderbolt, and you're going to convert that to FireWire, and you're going to be able to use a FireWire write blocker, and you can image the laptop by putting it into target mode. So when it's in target mode, you know, that's been a normal standing issue that we are actually able to deal with. So the problem with the new MacBook Retina is that it has USB mode. So this has the port that's the USB-C port, and this new port causes some problems because I've discovered that there's a variety of different things. There's no other ports, there's just the one port. It's the USB-C port, and so you have to have USB-C adapters, you have to have a number of other things in order for this to work. But the USB-C adapter, when you put it into target mode, it is a USB mode. So you're now in a PCIe Express port mode talking through USB. So it doesn't use any of the other Thunderbolt or any of the other Thunderbolt connectors you would use for imaging. The other problem is that it's very difficult to get power through to the device, so it needs to be fully charged. And so I'm experimenting with power issues and some of the other things, because it is very unique in the fact that if you plug the USB port into another device that is USB, that it will power the laptop as well, but in target mode it doesn't receive the power that way, or that there is a problem with power while you're connecting to the devices trying to image them. There's some other things that are a problem, like for instance, you must be on version 10.10.2 in order to actually see the Mac, have the drivers, and have everything installed if you're going to try to communicate with it. So it doesn't work well using a Windows system or using other things. I've gotten it to talk over Windows, but have not gotten the drivers and the device to be seen so that I can actually image the device. And so I have not been able to use a Windows machine yet to make this happen. So I've only been able to image this using another Macintosh with at least USB 3.0 as the port. If you have anything before USB 3.0, I have not been able to get it to work at all, and so there is not a way to image these new Macs, either the newest Mac 15 Retina, which is the little 12-inch one, or the new MacBook Pro 2015. And so I'm going to go through some scenarios here and try to show you what these things are. So you'll see things zoom in and out, and I'll show you as I'm going through them. So I'm going to start by explaining that I have purchased everything that says USB-C on it. And so there's some items that I'm going to be looking at here that I'm going to try to explain. This is a USB 3.0 powered hub, and these are going to be cables that on one end you will see the USB-C port. On this one it also is USB-C, but then I also have your standard USB-A ports to C ports. So those are the variety of cables I have. I also have a hub that would be separately powered by a C port with two connectors on it, which is also a 3.0 port with a C connector to go straight into the Mac, because we're going into this little tiny port, which is the only port that exists on this laptop. As you can see, there's nothing else there. Also next to this, you're going to see I have another powered USB 3 port hub as well, which I will be using in this demonstration, that is powered separately. And then additionally, on the other adapters, I have the Apple C to VGA with a USB port on it, and I also have the HDMI connector with a USB port that would be powered separately, and then a separate one which is Ethernet coming out on a USB-C port into a standard hub, which is not powered, and then your standard USB port, which I've also got a 64 gig USB-C memory stick. So there's actually a USB-C port on one side and a USB port on the other. So that's the equipment, the main equipment. I also have a tool called Macquisition, which is from Black Bag, which is an awesome tool, which I'm going to have to use to image, so you'll see that in process. I have a USB 2.0 hub, which would be powered by the hub itself and no additional devices. And then I have a hard drive that I'm going to use to image content with. And then you will also see I have all the write blockers. So I will have a USB write blocker that will be an inline USB write blocker that I'm going to also have to use in order to try to get an image, and I'm going to try to see if this even works. And then this one here is not the newest version of the Macs, but it does have a USB 3 port. So I do have USB 3 on the side of this device, and I have upgraded this one to the newest version of Yosemite. So at least after you get past 10.10.2, then this process will work. But if you're on anything earlier, it will not see the Mac at all. So I've already updated to that, and it would just ignore the Mac when you plug it in. So my first step here is going to be to try to show you what happens, because most forensics guys would put these devices into target mode. So that's going to be the next step I'm going to do, is try to show you target mode on these devices. So this is the MacBook Retina, and this particular Mac with the USB-C port, I'm going to go ahead and shut this one down so that we can put this into its target mode. Now, target mode on most Macs, and everybody already knows, is that if you held down T when the system was booting, that once it's running, it will actually switch to target mode. So I'm going to hold down T, and at the same time I'm going to push the power button so that this device will then go into target mode. So once it comes up, it will then go into target mode, and you will now see that there is a little USB device. Now watch the battery on this particular display. So this is how you know whether or not you're being charged or you're not being charged by power. Right now there's no power display. You don't see the little battery, but when I unplug it, you will then see that the battery will then display. The battery will stay on, and you will see that little display that will continue to show all the time if there is nothing charging this device at all. Now it will accept power in, and you can put power in, but I'm going to show you that if you were to take, say, a USB hub like this, there is a little light that would come on when it's being powered, and so there'd be a green dot that would come on right there. Well, in this particular case, if I go and I plug this in, you will then see there is no power being applied to this USB device at all. So there's no power out happening while this thing is in target mode. So nothing's going to be powered on the hub side at all. Now, there are the Apple devices and the Apple device that actually has a USB device in connection. Now what you can do is you can take power and you can connect it to the device. Then you can plug that into the laptop. And this particular device, you will now see, now it's going to be charging the laptop while it's passing through this particular hub. And then you can plug devices in, USB devices into this hub and try to communicate with it. And you can see that this is an A port to an A port. So I would actually be trying to plug this into a Mac or another device that I can try to pick up to try to look at this thing in target mode. So that's going to be the next thing I'm going to do. So here we are, and this is what I'm about to show you, is that in this particular case I have standard A to A. So what would happen is I would now want to plug into this laptop over here the USB cable, and then the USB cable into the hub that is plugged into the C port. And what I would expect at this point is that this Mac over here on my left to pop up with a box that would allow me to type in the password to use this external device. And you'll notice that it has not happened. That there is nothing that's showing that this additional Mac is plugged in. Now I could go look at the configuration and you can actually see whether or not it's plugged in or showing up, but it is not, and there is no activity or anything that would be going on there. Now, one of the things that to show you how this port would work most of the time is this, to pull the C connector off, and let's get rid of all this in between altogether. And let's go directly to a C to A and see what happens. So I'm going to plug this one in, and then I'm going to plug this into the laptop. Now you'll see over here on the left it has recognized that that Mac is coming up, and then it pops up the box, and so I would be able to type in my password and it would mount this Macintosh's hard drive on the right. So let's do this. This is the password for the device on my right. So when you do that, then it actually mounts that Macintosh. So now I could image it, but now forensically this is not very sound because I just mounted this device, and imaging it is now going to cause a problem. So I am going to go ahead and eject this, but you can see that I'm also not applying power while this is live. If you come over here and you look at the Mac, you'll see it's not receiving power. So I have a problem getting a charge to that while it is mounted and doing something. Now it is not mounted, and now it is receiving a charge. So the USB reverses when it's not mounted, and it is now just receiving power as a charge. So this isn't a very sound way for us to image this laptop. However, it is certainly a way I could have used DD or something else to image it. So I'm going to try some other experiments to see if I can get more sound with regards to that, since we also have no power and you cannot use a hub like this, which also, by the way, eliminates the hub like this one as well. You can get power to the hub, but you can't get power to the laptop if you wanted to provide it long enough to image this device. So you got to hopefully have enough power to image the device. This will work exactly the same as the other dongle, so it will turn it on temporarily and you can hook stuff up, but it won't pass it back, and it doesn't allow A to A ports to work. So, and then all the other cables, it doesn't matter if you're going C or C to A, those will do the exact same thing. Okay, so now my next experiment is going to be this. There is a hub, a powered hub right here. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to add the powered hub to my Mac on the left. And you'll see it will come up. And so when I add that, you'll see that it recognizes I have this powered hub. Now, the other Mac is acting as an external hard drive, and it's currently being charged. And it does have this USB port on the dongle. So my expectation would be that I could take a standard A to A cable, and that I could then make this dongle live and active passing through. Since that was the way Apple did this, there was only one item, and you will notice that the Mac on the left did not pick up the hard drive and does not see it, because this device is acting as a USB external hard drive and is not picking it up at all. So that isn't very useful in this particular scenario. So the next scenario I would want to use is a C to an A and see whether or not the powered hub will supply power and mount the device. So this part has just become completely useless. So now I'm going to plug this into the Mac, and I'm going to then try to apply power in this direction and see whether or not going from the powered hub back into the Mac works. So this scenario works. If you look, I now have at least powered going through the hub and going into the system from the C to A, and it's asking me for the password again. However, you'll notice the Mac on the right is still not being charged, even though it's a powered hub or would be supplying power. Once it's in this mounted mode, it is not allowing it in any way, shape, or form to receive power. So while I could image it, it also, again, wouldn't be forensically sound in order to do this. So this particular process, at least, will cause some problems from a forensic standpoint. Now this next device that I have in my hands, is a standard forensics USB bridge. This is what we use to image devices that are USB so that it passes through a write blocker. So this particular item is a very common used item. Now I could plug this into the Mac and then I could image an external hard drive using other tools, or Windows machine or other devices, and it will turn on and try to recognize a device. And so what I'm going to show you is it's going to come off the USB port, and so this would be a standard USB storage device. It's going to be coming off of the USB coming from that Mac. And so I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to show you that in the forensics world, even though it's recognizing and seeing that there was something there, it is now showing it is not connected, and there is no device, there is no pass-through, there is no way for me to image this through the USB device at all currently to actually be able to read this. I don't know if you can see the screen that says that, but you'll see it says device is not connected, and it does not recognize the mass storage on that external Mac at all. So we're done with this scenario. This one, again, does not work and will not solve the problem. Now I'm going to show you what I have plugged in here. I have plugged in this external, this is an external USB-C hub. It has 2 ports on it, and you'll see I'm plugging it in, and it does not get power from the Mac at all. It does not receive power, it does not output power. When I plug the C port in to get power, I get power to the hub. You can see that light, but what you're not seeing, again, is the Mac itself is not receiving power. So there's no way to charge and still do this. Again, we still would not be able to get an image or do anything. So the next scenario that I would try would be that I would have to have an external bootable device and an external hard drive that would be write protected that could see a Mac running 10.10.5 or 10.10.2 and be able to mount and image this device, as it's got a built-in solid state, and the solid state is not removable. So I cannot open this Mac and take this out. It has a single chip, and that chip would prevent me from doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the Mac now so that we no longer have this device active at all. Now I'm going to use this item that's called Macquisition. So Macquisition is a bootable forensics Mac tool, and I'm also going to go ahead and give it a hard drive that I would be writing the image to. Now Macquisition will boot on the key. It will also be write blocked, and it will also see File Vault, and it will ask you for a password so that you can image the device. Now obviously there is a slight problem in the fact that if you do not have the password and you do not have the cooperation of the user, you may not be able to get an image of this device. So I'm going to show you as I turn it on. I'm going to hold down the option key, and now you'll see the Mac goes into the mode of which you can choose what's plugged into it. Now you're going to notice, even through this powered hub connected separately, that this particular device does not work and that I cannot get any output or see the device that's connected to it. I can only see the local device. So this is a constant problem I'm having, is that none of these devices will allow me to be able to see the internal mechanism that's going on the laptop itself. Okay, so again, I'm going to stop this process and I'm going to start over again with a new hub. Okay, now I'm just about ready to go here. What I'm going to show you is I have an externally powered USB 3 hub. This has got a separate power port. Now I've connected to the Mac's adapter the USB to the hub. So that port's going straight through to the existing hub. And then the C connector that would normally plug into the Mac to receive power. And then this hard drive is now plugged in to the hub. So everything is going to come alive off of the Apple's adapter, because apparently they can't use anybody else's hub. You can only use this one. So watch what happens. I'll plug this in. Then the Mac will come to life and notice the hub and the equipment. It now is polling the disks that are connected to it. And now you'll actually see all of the hard drives. You'll see the external hard drive I have here finally showed up. You'll also see Macquisition, and all the other things showed up as well. So right now, this is the best scenario that I have had so far, is that Macquisition would be able to boot right blocked. Now it must also be the updated version of Macquisition, which just came out here in August of 2015. None of the other versions of Macquisition would work in this particular mode. So I'm going to select Macquisition, and I'm going to boot on Macquisition. So Macquisition is going to boot off of the memory stick, and then it's going to show me that it's got a hard drive connected to it, which I can then unlock because it has File Vault done. And I would be able to image that hard drive through to this external hard drive. If I need to reformat it or do anything, then that would take care of the problem. This one is right blocked, software right blocked. It's using their own technology internally to do the software right blocking. But as you can see, unless I'm using the Apple adapter, at least so far, I haven't been able to make these others work and get it to pass through. So that's been part of my problem, is I've only got a limited amount that I can do. So Macquisition is now able to see the hard drive. You'll see it'll come up in a second. And none of the other scenarios that I've tried so far have worked, and continue to have. So you'll see it detected I have File Vault 2, it's enabled, and then you have to go through the process of unlocking, selecting your destination, going through all the points that you can actually do, dealing with the local drives and the local equipment in order to do a backup. So far you can see there was going to be some problems trying to get these things to connect, and trying to get into a scenario where you can read the external drive. So that is the short version of how to get an image or try to do an image. I have at this point not tried other third-party tools because I don't think they're going to recognize File Vault, and they're not going to recognize any other way to actually boot this, because even again other Macs won't unless you're on 10.10.2. For those of you wondering what it looks like to see Macquisition screen when you finally are into the devices, you'll see the one that says it is encrypted right there. And so you can get the gist of the fact that at least at this point you can see the device, and that you can in some way, because you can pass the password to it, you can go ahead and image the device and open an external hard drive as a destination and go ahead and image to it. So just so you can understand, that is the basic problem that we're dealing with here, is that none of the other tools can see the device and what to do with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would image this device using Mac Position. The first thing is I've already gone to Tools, and I already went to the hard drive, and I went ahead and I mounted the external one, read write. So that's already done, and it already says read write. So now I'm going to come up to the drive that I want to image, and I need to unlock it so I can image it. So I'm going to select to unlock it, and it's going to ask me the password for the drive. So I'm going to try to mount that, and it was unlocked, and now you'll see Mac Position, go ahead and unlock the encrypted container right here, and it uses core storage. So now I can choose to image this particular device. I'm going to add the destination that I'm writing it to. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to my 2 terabyte external, where it's already read write. It's already done. I'm going to say open. Then I'm going to make a folder, image, open, and now I have a folder with which I'm going to now write E01s for this image, now unencrypted, directly to the drive. Now this is will contain the decrypted data, so I'm going to spit out the decrypted container, and this is going to be a core storage container, so that physically at least is what I have to do. Now the other problem, and at least at this point that I have, is I don't have a status of the battery. So I can't see the battery power, and I don't know where it stands at this moment. And right now I have a 512 gig drive, so it's going to take 3 hours or whatever it is of time, at least, to image this. And without 100% of the battery power, I don't really know if it's going to make it or not. So I don't know if it's being charged. So I'm going to let that run, and I'm just going to let it sit here and image, and then I'm going to come back and see how long it took and what I have. But that's the best I can do at this point. So now this is the next day. As you can see, the laptop is still alive. It is getting power, but there is no notation in Mac Position that shows the battery life. You can see the image got complete, and it took several hours to get this 512 gig SSD copied. So this is the only way I have found that this has worked. So right now, at least, this, with the method of using a powered hub connected to the Apple hub with the inbound going in, is the only way that I have been able to get power to get back to the laptop in order to get the image complete. Also, we have also discovered, and Scott Layless was working on this as well, if there is a firmware problem, a firmware password that has been set on the laptop, it appears there will be no way to get into this if you don't have the password for the firmware, because there is no way to remove the SSD and put it in another drive or in another computer that doesn't have it unless you resolder the BGA. And I'm not really certain that that's going to be plausible very easily and destroy a $1,700 laptop in order to do it. But currently, that's what the situation is. So this is my demonstration of using the new MacBook Retina 2015 and a new MacBook Pro, and what you have to do to get an image of the hard drives, the solid state drives, because they are locked down and they are different, and they are using USB mode instead of FireWire and target mode that would be normal. So my name is Scott Moulton, and please join me for any of my classes or any of the things that if you look at my YouTube channel, you'll see a ton of material on how to do data recovery and forensics, and please feel free to join me for any of my classes or any of my material.